Hola familia, I'm Roselyn, and this is Growing Up Spanglish, a podcast about the chaos of being raised between two cultures. If you grew up speaking English at school and Spanish at home, navigating traditions, family expectations, and everything in between, then you're in the right place. Our stories, our experiences, and maybe a little chisme along the way. This podcast is recorded at COVL Studios in the heart of Miami. We're going to kick things off. I realized I did you a disservice the last 2 seasons, and I am going to correct this. Now that the Duolingo owl is dead, it is up to me to make sure that you learn Spanish.
Oh, but I'm happy we brought this up because it was on my heart. Duolingo dying was on my heart. I don't want to serious this out. But whose idea was it for Duolingo to be a blackbird? Because they killed it. I think it was like Taquisha or something crazy. Like that was what they killed it.
Renisha, something like that.
Something like that. I'm not Duolingo. Listen to me, where's my camera? You people at Duolingo, let TikTok have its moment. Don't do that again. Black death is not funny. All right, we don't crack jokes about black death around here. Stay in your place, dog. That's all I'm gonna say.
I have the responsibility.
That's it. Roxy got to teach me. That's it. Let's do it.
It's on me. Yeah, top of every episode, I'm going to give you a word so that you can learn, right? And then at the end of this season, we're going to do a pop quiz.
The only thing that I know is mira quién es. All right. Hey, look who it is. Let's do this.
So, in honor of... Actually, I'm just going to give you the word and then I'll tell you why, but I don't want to give you context clues. So, the word of today is mudanza.
You can't even start with an easy word, dog.
Because you know the holas and the como estás, arroz, pollo. You know that.
I do. That's true. I've been in Miami long.
Yeah.
Say it one more time for me.
Mudanza.
Mudanza. Mudanza? Hey, check. And I ain't even trying to say it like a gringo. Let's go.
What do you think it means? Let's see if you can just sounding it out. What do you think?
Mudanza. This is tough. Can you use it in a sentence, but like a Spanglish sentence?
Spanglish, okay. La mudanza se va a tardar because there's a lot of packing to do.
Your suitcase?
No.
Mudanza. Damn. Airplane? Travel?
No.
Yeah. All right, bro. Go ahead. Just go ahead. Give that.
Mudanza is moving.
Moving.
Like
mudanza.
You're moving. You're packing up.
Okay.
You're gonna,
All right.
So I picked that word because Bad Bunny dropped his video for that song.
Okay.
And so I was just like listening to the song over again and watching the video. So I just picked that word.
Mudanza.
Yeah, mudanza.
I gotta find a way to use that in a sentence for like myself at some point.
Yeah.
But I'm rolling. I appreciate you. How you spell that?
Mudanza.
Mudanza.
Yeah.
Mudanza. Oh, that's fire. All right. Look, don't be surprised by the end of the season. I'm lit outside. All right? Y'all gonna know. Y'all gonna know. Cool?
So let's get into it with our guest today on Growing Up Spanglish. We're sitting down with an incredibly talented guest. She is a Miami-born, Brooklyn-based, multidisciplinary artist whose bold, playful work is a love letter to her Puerto Rican heritage, her personal journey, and the search for belonging. From murals to digital art, the metaverse, she's redefining what it means to create without limits. Let's get into it.
Wow, what an intro.
Yeah, tell the people who you are.
My name is Diana, and my artist name is COVL, which is an acronym of what I feel like I represent as an artist. So there's craft, onward, versatility, and lifestyle. And to your point, I just like to bring color and cultural identity to what I do.
Having been born in Miami, raised with that Puerto Rican culture, very lively, loud, colorful, how does that play into your style and the choices that you've made?
Like being Puerto Rican in general, we're just loud. And I feel like my work is very much that. And it just feels like a no-brainer. There's really no deep, intricate way that I incorporate that into my work and my style and who I am. I think it's just really heavily embedded. And being Puerto Rican, raised in Miami, I think my work really reflects the salsa, the chaos, the Miami nights. So it's just a true representation of like how I grew up here.
And just having all of those things inspire you and be part of your everyday life. I think that like there's just no way of getting around that. There's so much color here in Miami, and it's really like a true representation of all of the Caribbean influence that's here. There's a lot of colors everywhere, and even when you're driving around like South Beach or things like that, there's just color everywhere and all the art that we get to see. So it makes sense that would be like part of your artistic style.
Yeah.
Where exactly in Miami did you grow up?
I grew up off of Pennsylvania Avenue.
Oh, like on the beach?
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me.
She's a South Beach girl. Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
Yes.
I love that.
In the 90s. So
Oh, wow.
that was such a different time.
Take
And
us through
I
that.
would.
Yeah, what was the
Take us
beach
through
like
that.
at
Yeah,
that
word.
time?
Oh, it was just like live music. The people were very eccentric back then. Like, I think now what we see a lot in Miami South Beach specifically is like that nightlife kind of lifestyle. I didn't see that growing up. It's not what was represented on the streets. Like, you had people that were creatives, you had salseros, you had the people that I grew up with my mother who were just like eccentric, weird, kooky, spiritual, very like hippie. Like, times were a lot more about joy then, and you could see it in the streets. And mind you, there's the ups and downs of that too. There's homelessness and things of that nature, but I think as a community back then, you really saw it the moment you stepped outside and people knew who you were. So it really felt like a neighborhood back then.
It feels like Miami obviously has changed so much.
Yeah.
We talk about that all the time on the show about just how staples are gone and certain communities have been gentrified and all of those things. So it's like the inevitable, yes, but it's so important to be able to come back and try to still like uplift the community that is left. It is really sad when you see parts of Miami that just don't, it just doesn't feel right.
And I was driving with my mom today because she grew up near 36 right in Wynwood.
Okay, yeah.
And I was like, let me take you there. Let me drive you there. And she's okay. And we were driving there earlier today and she was just looking around. She's like, this is Wynwood? I'm like, yeah.
That's how I feel. That's how I feel in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
That's exactly how I feel in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
It's the same parallel for me. Being here is okay. I've seen it happen in person, right?
Yeah.
And you're taking it all in, and like it doesn't really hit you how much change has happened because you're seeing it happen over space.
Yeah.
When I go to Brooklyn, I'm like, yo, what is going on right now? Like, there's high rises in Brooklyn, bro. It's still mind blowing to me, especially considering that I grew up in the Little Caribbean, right? And all of Nostrand being a certain way, and then you having like mom and pop shops and all those restaurants, and that almost not being the same now is just, it's one of those things that kind of makes you miss or have a longing for what you grew up on and knowing that that's never going to be exactly the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah. When I'm driving in Miami, it's so frustrating. The traffic is so horrible. And I just ask myself, like, how much more can they build?
It's insane.
There's so
Where's the
many.
space?
There's no more space.
I don't know.
There's traffic at all times, any day of the week, any time of the day. I don't live in Miami. Now I live in West Miramar.
Okay.
But when I do have to drive into Miami, I'm like, why would anyone want to do this? Like, I'm just like, ew, you want to sit in this traffic? No, it's so horrible. And then all you see is construction everywhere. So I'm like, what? Where do you want to fit the people?
Yeah.
On top of each other? I don't understand.
It's like a lot of construction and a lot of consumerism. Like, what? Every neighborhood just feels like it's the corner store of a Louis Vuitton or a Chanel now. I'm just like, wait, where's the culture at?
But this is like where people like you show up and you guys bring that culture or flavor to Miami, where it's like now your murals or your basketball courts and the flavor that you bring, even from the sense of nostalgia being curated in it. That's why we need you guys, right?
Yeah.
Do you feel that burden when you create? I use burden in, it's probably the wrong word because it has a negative connotation, but from the standpoint of, do you feel the urgency of that?
Yeah, 1000%. I always want to come correct too. I remember when I did the basketball court back in 2019, and I'm just thinking about the neighborhood that is in and thinking about what's my play in it, and also thinking about gentrification, and I just always want to come correct. So there's like an immense pressure, but for me it's okay, I will bear that responsibility, but I want to do it right. And I want to be correct and be mindful of where I'm implanting my art in. We do our best.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of pressure, but I feel like I can bear it.
I like it.
How does that look like for you, of being mindful of communities and the things that you're doing, the not only the activations and the installations, but if you are in certain neighborhoods, what are the things that you'd have to be like mindful of?
I think about what I did, the basketball court in Orchard Beach in the Bronx. And I remember I flew back to Puerto Rico to do research. And me and my best friend, we were walking around, we were asking questions, we were at the Quilquito, having conversations and cafecitos with like owners there. That is how I do mindfulness. Just because I'm Puerto Rican, I don't think that's the only reason why I should paint a basketball court.
Yeah.
I also want to bring history to it and be mindful of the history that where that art is going to live in. So for the Bronx and Orchard Beach, just being like Puerto Rico City essentially, and the history that lives on that beach, like it was my responsibility to understand what was going on the island and then also reflect what was going on here in the United States. And so I think doing research and asking questions, like that's how I can play mindfulness.
Yeah. I do think that even something that I've struggled with is along that same sentiment. Because I'm Puerto Rican doesn't mean that I am automatically given the right, you know, to like advocate for certain things or have the platform for certain things without really educating myself on that. And I think that is such a tight rope to walk because you just don't want to ruffle feathers. You don't want to offend. You don't want to say the wrong things. And that's always just like a struggle in itself. Because on the one hand, you're never going to make everybody happy.
No.
Someone is always going to have a problem with anything you say. It's better for me to create the opportunity to have the conversation rather than just keep my mouth shut. I want to be educated. Correct me. But there is just always that kind of fear.
I don't think people realize from your own community just how much pressure they put on you. And it's not intentional. I know sometimes it's not intentional, but some other times it's like they berate you. They're like trying to make you feel as if you don't belong in these pockets. But my story still matters.
And it's valid.
And it's valid. And if you zoom in and look at the bigger picture, I'm like highlighting all of us.
Yeah.
But in my lens, I think we feel the pressure because it's like we want to be respectful. And there are people that make us feel bad about it, but it doesn't negate the fact that I should not talk about it at all.
I want to go further into this because I am just now thinking of a few things about making us feel bad, and specifically within the Hispanic community. We could go more granular into the Puerto Rican-ness of it all. Are you Boricua de allá afuera or de la isla? Bruh, this conversation is so tired.
It gets me so nervous. And I remember being on the island and making new friends and like feeling as if it was going to go one or two ways. Either I was going to be accepted or I was going to be questioned. And it's so isolating to feel that way. I want to be back on land with everybody and be able to compartir and break bread with them. But certain people are just very like, I guess, territorial.
Because you're part of the diaspora. From their perspective, it's, yeah, okay, you're one of us, but you're not really one of us.
Yeah.
Like, we're something different. And we can tell just off your accent. My cousins in Haiti make fun of me all the time. Hey, bro, that accent it's not so good. So much so that I made it a point to get better at my Creole just so that way I could connect even further and have that barrier broken down. I love that you said you want to represent all these people from that lens. Do you have those people also represented in your art? The people who are purposely isolating you, right?
Oh,
to make
1000%.
Yeah.
If I talk about one, I'm talking about all of them, despite how the relationships may be or how they may view me and et cetera. But at the end of the day, I feel like that's my responsibility. The blood is in me. I know my history. I'm very respectful about it. It's up to them to give me an opportunity to do that. But I'm giving myself that opportunity, which I think is the bigger picture here, is that like I do belong in the midst of all this.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like I should have shame about how I was raised, the lack of speaking Spanish or whatever the case may be. Like, I'm trying.
There was an interesting topic that I had seen about No Sabo kids. And for those that don't know what No Sabo kids is, like when you're Spanglish and you grew up here in the US and maybe you either forgot your Spanish or your parents assimilated and never wanted you to learn Spanish, you would speak to your family that's back home, wherever home is, and they would try to talk to you in Spanish and you'd be like, no sabo. I don't know. I think identity and labels and all these things are so interesting because at the end of the day, they're very divisive no matter what. But I always thought that the No Sabo kid terminology was a term that we gave ourselves.
I thought that's what it was,
and
too.
I thought that it was like a term of endearment. Yeah, I'm a No Sabo kid, but
Yeah, that's what I thought.
yeah, but then there was a conversation that I was unaware of that it was being used as a slur. And I think slur, this is the word that the person navigating the conversation used, is a strong word to use. Like a slur, that's very powerful to align with being like No Sabo. So I thought that was interesting. You ever felt like if someone said you were a No Sabo kid, like they were offending you?
What's crazy is that no one's ever called me that. No one's ever been like, oh, Diana's a No Sabo.
Yeah.
I've never had that. And I also don't feel that way.
Yeah.
That's just how I personally feel about myself. Because like I said, like I try to be respectful. I try to learn Spanish. Like when I talk to my dad, Spanish.
Yeah.
The most patient man. Shout out to our parents that are patient.
Yeah.
Shout out to our family members that are patient with
Facts.
us and
Yeah.
not judgy. Because I've had times where I say something and they're like, that's not how you say it. I'm just like, please give me time.
Right.
And at the end of the day, though, I don't think there's anything wrong with it for someone to want to associate themselves with that.
Yeah.
Because that is the reality for a lot of us. We were just raised differently. We didn't have the option. I didn't ask to not be born in Puerto Rico. I would have loved to that be the case, but
there's so many funny things that happen, like that our parents try to change for us and keep us from. And then as we get older, we're like, no, I wish I would have been born in Puerto Rico. And your parents probably worked their asses off to make sure you weren't born in Puerto Rico. And you're like, I want to move back. And now I want to live there. Just so funny, like the things that our parents do, the sacrifices that they make. But is that not also a privilege that we have the choice and the opportunity to say, I want to move back?
yeah, 1,000%.
Yeah.
I think it's also a privilege, like when things are happening and we decide not to talk about things, political or things that are happening on the island. Like that's a privilege.
Yeah.
Because we're not there.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I feel like I have that responsibility to educate myself, because that's the least that we can do here in the States, is not only the advocacy part of it, but also just being aware of what's going on.
Absolutely.
But yeah, if I had it differently, if I could choose,
Yeah.
not here.
Yeah. No, my parents definitely didn't want us to be in Puerto Rico. They also made sure that we was not raised in the Bronx. That's where they were. They said,
Wait,
no, we're
What's
heading
wrong
down
with the
south.
Bronx?
In my dad's mind, he believes that his three daughters would have grown up to be very different women if they had stayed where they were.
I'll tell you this. I truly do believe New York is a different beast as a whole. The KJ that you have right here is not the KJ that grows up in New York completely, like through and through. And I want us to touch on that at some point, is what does you navigating those three worlds feel like?
That's why I dedicated that basketball court to the kids that are like me, who did not grow up in New York as a Puerto Rican, because that's a whole different world that I don't know about. I'm aware of it historically, and I love the community that lives in New York right now, but I don't know it. And then I'm not born on the island. Mind you, I lived there for an extended period of time, but I didn't have that growing up experience there. So then I'm right in the middle. And now I get to show that world of what it's like to be Puerto Rican in Miami, which I don't often hear about and I don't often see. But here in Florida, there's a lot of Puerto Ricans that we don't get to talk about or highlight. It's often seen in a negative light with everything that's going on politically. But I don't know, like at some point it felt very isolating to not have any kind of history in New York or Puerto Rico. And I was just navigating this middle. But I think it goes back to how I'm trying to pay respects to them and trying to educate myself and armor myself with the language and history and listening to music again. With the Benito album dropping, it took me back to like how my dad raised me in like the early 90s with salsa, and my dad would play the congas at the family parties. Everyone gets to experience that nuance in a different way. But that's also like a reminder that like I too matter.
Yeah.
Everyone has their trajectory, and mine also is included in that.
Right. I love that, because that album, honestly, it's just like the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah.
That's why it's like exciting when he drops a new video, because it just brings you back. We're still celebrating this album. And it's just so good because of the fact that he just made it a point for us to feel seen. But like you're saying, even including that New Rican experience, a lot of people don't understand that New Rican is a thing. It's this sense of pride about having been born and grown up in New York, but you're Puerto Rican, even if you've never been to the island, and somehow they will speak Puerto Rican Spanish like if they grew up their whole lives on the island. And I'm just like, you ain't never been though. That's crazy. Like it's so part of the community. But like you said, growing up in Miami, I didn't really see a Puerto Rican community. And I have, I don't know, different theories on that.
What's one of your theories?
It's gonna be a little
spicy.
Yeah. My theory is that there is a Puerto Rican community in Miami, but it's divided into 3 parts. One part is like the bougie ass Puerto Ricans that cannot be bothered. And they would rather align themselves with the next major group. Then you have...
You mean assimilate to whiteness?
No, maybe not whiteness, but Cubans, Venezuelans. They're like gonna align themselves with whatever the next large group is.
Yeah.
Then you have like your regular people, the party people and all that stuff. But they also go to a different group too.
Yeah.
And then you have the Puerto Ricans that are just like there. Like they're like, I left the island. I don't need to find my community here.
Yeah.
I'm good. So like where you go to New York, or specifically like the Bronx, you see such a community and tienditas and restaurants and this and that.
Yeah.
And you really see the community like there's no way to escape it. The food you eat, the music you listen to, all these things is just very much part of the experience. Here, it's just, I was looking for a Puerto Rican store.
Here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I couldn't find one. There used to be one that I knew of in Hollywood. And then I found out it closed. And I was like, no, that was where I used to like go get certain things.
Really? I didn't even know that was in Hollywood.
Yeah, in Hollywood on Johnson Street. It had been there forever. And like he had everything there. He also sold food. He would have whatever little trinkets. It was like a souvenir shop, if you will.
Yeah.
And he just closed. And I was like, oh no, what happened to him? And he didn't have a social media, so I couldn't find him. And people will come and visit and they'll be like, oh, where can I get Puerto Rican food? Or where do the Puerto Rican people hang out? I'm like, that's not really a thing.
That's not really
in
a
Miami. That's not, we don't really have, there are pockets here and there. We'll find each other, you know, but like
In
it's
conversation,
not,
though.
Yeah, exactly.
Be like, oh, what are you? And they're like, oh, Puerto Rican.
Right.
What?
Like Dominicans have alapata. And like, you know that you can go in the weekends, you can find like, what did I call it? El teteo. You can find it.
You see, this is why I don't know Spanish. How you just gonna help me understand what is el teteo?
I also don't know what el teteo is. I just picked it up from my Dominican bread. All I know is that teteo is the word that they use for the party, the hangout.
The hangout. Okay.
Yeah. So you in Alapata, you can find that. Cubans, they got this on lock. There's a lot of pockets where you can find certain groups, but I can't sit here and be like, oh, on Fridays, all the Puerto Ricans are, I don't know where they are. But then we go a little further up north, and then Orlando and Kissimmee, that's where they're all at.
You're running to every cousin.
St. Cloud got them.
Yes.
No, St. Cloud. Listen, St. Cloud, you can go and you'll find like the car show with, you know how in Puerto Rico they'll have the
called
cars
La Fiebre.
with the 70 speakers in them.
Yeah.
On the doors, it got like 6 speakers on this side, 6 speakers on that side, and then the trunk has like nothing. You'll find that in St. Cloud. It's 100% there. Yeah,
and I love it.
cool.
But I don't know that I want to move
No.
to St. Cloud.
No shade to Orlando. I love you.
You lived in Lakeland.
Yeah. That was the worst. Like I made the most of it.
Yeah.
Because that's just who I am as a person. No matter where I'm at in the world, I will make the most of it. But that was very interesting because I went to a predominantly like white school.
Okay.
And obviously there's a lot of ignorance that lives amongst many communities, but I was always affiliated with the Mexicans. So it was like predominantly white and then a lot of Mexicans. And a white person would never come to me and be like, oh, you're Puerto Rican. They're like, oh, you're Mexican. So I spent the majority of all my school years like having to like correct people and being like, no, this is who I am. Or if I'm in Spanish class, God forbid if my Spanish teacher
finds out that you.
Oh my goodness. No, but then she's white. So it's like, it was a very interesting experience going to school in Lakeland as a Puerto Rican. I was, again, navigating the middle of many parts, but I made the most of it. And a lot of times I was like the life of the party.
Yes.
It had to be. I had to survive.
That makes sense. You do what you got to do. So Lakeland is how far from like Orlando?
45 minutes? Yeah, 45 minutes.
But that 45 minutes creates such a stark difference between what they think is Hispanic is just off-rip Mexican.
Yes.
That's
how Lakeland knows, because if you go a little further out to Plant City, that's where a lot of Mexicans have strawberry farms.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then they have a Plant City festival every year, strawberry farm situation. So there's like a lot of Mexicans that live in Lakeland in close proximity to it.
Yeah.
So I think white people
just automatically.
They're like, oh, that's you.
Yeah.
Everyone's the same.
Yeah.
But I would definitely go to Orlando or Tampa for the fun. I was not partying in Lakeland.
In Lakeland?
No.
You know what I love? Even in the midst of all of this, there's still so much pride of being Puerto Rico in the midst of all these white folk. Was that like instilled from your parents? Did they give you that game up front and just let you know, yo, this is who we are, this is what it is, and this is how we navigate?
Yeah, like growing up with my parents in the 90s, again, we had a lot of like family parties. And so the uncles were all busting out the conga and we were having live parties till like 3 a.m. I would fall asleep on the plastic couches.
It's a rite of passage.
Oh, no, listen, for sure. The kids don't have that today. Like the plastic
they don't
couch
know that.
or rug runner.
Yes.
The plastic rug runner. You guys know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. That was a lot of my childhood, like being very comfortable with noise and live music. And my dad, my dad carried a lot of pride about being Puerto Rican, how he dressed. There was no corner that did not have a flag. Like I was very exposed to it at a very early age. And then it got to the point where my dad became a single parent. He had took me to PR to live with my aunt and my uncle and my grandmother. And I lived there for a few, and that's when I got really immersed into Puerto Rico. And then that's when I learned about like how my grandfather was a businessman, and he had 2 shops in Ponce, and my tias, they all had hair salons. And so I was like very in it at some point, to the point where it became all that I knew. I remember spending time in Puerto Rico not knowing anything about Spanish. And my aunt tried. She really tried. She'll take me to church. We prayed. I remember having a prayer circle around me because everyone's like, please let her learn Spanish.
Stop.
Please. Like, bendiciones, please.
Oh my God. Because I wish you could see. Me and Roxy got a group chat where we talk about how much religion it's
Heavy.
partly like brainwashing to some degree.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I love God. I believe Jesus is my Lord and Savior. Okay,
Yes,
let's make that
amen.
clear. Facts. But there's a part of it that's just like, y'all doing a lot.
Yeah.
It feel kind of culty.
I was like, all these people praying on me. I'm just like, when? Later on, she admitted that she really was scared that I wasn't going to learn. And
That's nuts.
She was like, I need Jesus to like come. And so one day she gave me a vowel book, and I took the vowel book and I taught myself within 6 months.
Wow.
At a young age, and then because I had to go to school too.
The school that you went to didn't teach English?
They did.
Oh, okay.
To the point where they had a student teacher day where they'll switch, and like the teacher gets to be the student. And so my English teacher was like, hey, do you want to teach class?
Yeah.
So I got to teach like all these kids like English.
Yeah. And when you're younger, like when you're older, not so much. But when you're younger, you're kind of like the cool kid. Because you're like, oh, tú eres de allá afuera.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. And they want to ask you all the stuff, all the questions.
Yep, and like how to say cuss words in English. And then I got put into a spelling bee. So all that to say is that like I was immersed in it.
Yeah.
And then when I got back to the States, I forgot that I was from the States.
How did that feel? Like when you came back, were you like, oh, I never wanted to leave? Or were you like, yay, I'm happy, I'm back?
Because I was separated from my dad for a extended period of time. I was happy to be reunited with my dad, but I missed it big time. And I think just like culturally, I saw it quickly, just how vastly different it is. And I really missed it. I think that's why I really dedicated the rest of my life to like keeping that and just having such a dad that was so prideful about that. And exposing me to that very early age. I felt, oh, this is mine. And so when I moved to places like Lakeland, I looked at it as a kind of like a center stage to blow it up even bigger.
Yeah.
Like really stand out. And
Yeah.
I think that kind of became my superpower as years went on.
I think most Puerto Ricans are very prideful, where I have heard stories of people with different nationalities maybe would have caved and been like, yeah, Mexican. Yeah. Rather than be like, no, I'm this. And that even comes to play with like pronunciations of names. I'm Roselyn, and people, whatever they want to call me, whatever they want to call me.
Roselyn? Is it
Yeah,
Roselyn? Is it
Roselyn? But I did grow up telling people that it was just Roselyn, when in reality, my name is Roselyn. And I should have been like Roselyn my whole life, but I just never did. I was just like, yeah, Roselyn.
Yeah. Yeah. At home, I'm Diana. In the world, I'm Deanna. And I got to that point though, like in elementary, like middle school to high school, I got really tired of people trying me. So I was like, you know what? Fine. I'm Deanna. I'm Diana. I'm Dana, whatever. But once I got older, I was like, why am I code switching my own name? I was like, this is my identity. And I'm also very tired of y'all calling me the wrong name. And so I started to educate myself and then show up for myself in that way. So when I introduce myself now, it's Diana.
Yeah.
And people are still going to say Deanna, but at least you know where I stand with that.
Spanish names are hard to pronounce. Just figure it out, bro. Just figure out how to say
When people say that, I'm like, oh,
yeah.
you're ignorant. It's okay.
Yeah, I don't want me to start preaching, bro.
No, because your name.
Let's not go down this path. 'Cause I know how I feel about white folk trying to learn names.
I don't think a lot of people know the reason that we've inherited this pride of being Puerto Rican, wearing that flag, tatted on my chest. It actually comes from the fact that the Puerto Rican flag was banned in the 50s or the late 40s. It was against the law to wave that flag. And as a form of rebellion, there were people that were putting that flag everywhere, literally hanging outside of their homes. People who were killed for doing it. Was against the law for 10 years in Puerto Rico to wave that flag.
The gag order, yeah.
Yeah. And in the form of rebellion, people waving the flag, or the other side, which was you were so afraid of waving the flag. But nonetheless, 10 years later, when the law is repealed, it's basically like, we never want that to happen to us again. We never want to be coward or be shamed for where we're from and our flag. And even then, the current version of the flag is not, it's not the correct version of the flag. It's the navy blue that is closest to the American flag, when it used to be azul clarito, like a lot of Puerto Ricans will say. Like these
Like your hat.
sneakers. Oh, yeah, like my hat.
You just want to show off your shoes.
I did. My Bad Bunny. But yeah, like even Bad Bunny doing this shoe, like it's not just a blue, it's intentional.
Yep.
Even the blue on the album.
Yep.
But those are things that a lot of people don't know. Like you said, we're here to educate ourselves and then educate you in return. But there's so many things that people don't understand. We didn't grow up with that, right? That's not something we had to experience. But it was just like that inherited pride of, we need to make sure like this never happens again. Absolutely. And then when the law is taken away, basically 10 years later, the following year is what birthed the New York Puerto Rican Day Parade. So it was just like, that was the celebration of we can wave our flag. And wave their flag they did.
All day, every day.
All day, every day, because that parade it's beautiful.
It is. And just seeing how all the different neighborhoods like come together and like partake in that, like in different boroughs, you can have a different experience, like a different Puerto Rican experience.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's just like the most beautiful and awesome experience to see all that sea of flags and everyone's just so happy, and it's really a great feeling, and I love it. We're going to plan. We got to figure it out how we're going to get ourselves into that parade.
Listen, if anybody's watching this and they need bodies, listen.
Yes. We will hop on the float. We will walk. We will be in the Jeep. We will wave the flags.
I would do anything.
Yes.
Just tell them right there in your camera.
Hit me in my email. Send me a bat signal, something.
I love the fact that you have always incorporated who you are and your heritage into all of your work.
Thank you.
How do you basically even decide really like what style and what things you're going to do while still maintaining that connection to your heritage?
I just think everything evolves, everything grows. And you asking that, I really never place any expectancy on that. But at the end of the day, what I do, the industry that I do is very subjective. And what I do, there's a responsibility because artists, in my eyes, are historians. And so when I'm creating a body of work, I think that's what I'm doing. I'm just trying to embody a piece of history, a piece of my own experience. And however that looks, I don't think that matters. I think the core of it and what that's saying is what's more important. So I think allowing myself that flexibility and that grace to know that I'm growing, what I know is growing, my relationship with my identity is growing. And I think that's just like my responsibility to lay it out in however way it goes. Part of my process is feels spiritual and it feels very meditative. I think when you look at my work, a lot of people are probably like, what the hell was she thinking about? But I think it's just me and my inner child just collaborating on the things that we wish we saw more of in the world and also in our communities.
You did an exhibit that was called Homesick. And I know that a lot of the work was reflective of that, of your inner child, of your healing journey and those sort of themes. What does that look like, healing your inner child?
I used to joke to my therapist, I'm like, I'm going to be healing till the day I die. It's a never ending process. Yeah. And I think when you're doing inner child work, which is what a lot of my art is based off of, I'm constantly revisiting things that I've either compartmentalized, I've either blacked out, things that are trauma related or PTSD related. That's the work that I do. And I know that's heavy work. And I think that's why it looks so opposite of that. So when people are looking at my work, they don't see the heaviness of it, but that's the work that I'm doing behind the scenes. And so it's always evolving. It's always, to this very day, I sit in front of you as a healed woman, but I still got more to do.
Yeah.
And my inner child is allowing me to do that through art and design.
If it's based on whatever feelings you're sitting with, that's like an exhausting process.
Yeah,
no?
1000%. That show, Homesick taught me some. Because I thought when I was doing the show, I thought that was the work. But it's the fact that the work was done and then I have to sit with it. So after doing a body of work, seeing all these paintings and having to sit with them in the same room, that was like really interesting. I think that's in the ecosystem of what I do, right?
Yeah.
Like it's this never ending cycle. And I think as long as I'm allowing myself to, I just hope that at the end of it, people see that too and be like, oh, I can do the same thing.
Yeah.
I think as a collective, we all need the ability to go through things and heal through them.
Does it feel like these things have voices and that you're interpreting these voices all at the same time?
Like, obviously, you want to be able to face these things head on and rewrite them in a beautiful manner. And then interesting, and I'm like, wow, this really happened to me. And having to sit with the things that happened to you is that other side of the interesting. So like when I'm working and I feel like I'm in the middle of it all, where I'm seeing what I'm creating and how that's transpiring to something really beautiful, but also acknowledging, damn, that really happened to me. And I'm gonna have to sit with that.
Yeah.
Even though visually I love it. It's a vibrant, it feels warm. And I'm like, yeah, if only you knew.
And that's what I was going to ask next, because there are artists that once they're finished with a body of work, they never want to bring it up, see it again, talk about it again.
Yeah.
Is that something that you ever experienced where you're just like, cool, we can close that and push it forward? Like you don't want to revisit?
I don't ever want to go back to Homesick.
Wow.
I loved it. It was a moment for me to champion my trauma and like champion the things that happened to me. But I think that was a good moment for what it served. And then now we can just move on. But yeah, don't. I'm glad those paintings are sold.
Yes.
I can just live on somewhere else.
Yeah.
It's funny because listening to you talk about your art, it reminds me of comedians in the way that they use humor to get through pain. And there's so much beauty and synergy in that. But then I'm also hearing you talk about your healing of the inner child. And in other interviews, I've seen you talk about the future self, future Deanna. Your art has all this message in it. If you could tell someone 100 years from now a story particular to what you think would be impactful of who you are and who they could be. What does that story sound like, I guess?
Maybe I'm still writing it.
Mm.
I think I'm still writing it. Wow.
Sorry,
No,
I didn't.
I'm kidding. No, that's a really good question. I've never thought about that. I think if I had to give an overall message, not pertaining to a specific story, but I just want to be the poster child that we can do it.
Oh.
You know what I mean? I'm not a Nepo baby. I didn't come from money. My dad was a single parent at some point. I come from a very chaotic childhood. I was told that I was not going to make it. I was looked at as a statistic. I had all these odds. And still, I felt that that was not true. And I need more people to feel that way about themselves. That no matter what you're going through, those things do not define you. Yes, they do shape you into the person you are today. But I don't think what happened to me is my moniker, what defines me. And I think going in this industry of art and storytelling, I just want people to look at it and be like, I can have that as well. And it doesn't have to define me, doesn't have to stifle me. I think that's the overall message, that if I was to leave today, this world, just know that you can do it too.
It's so cool because this ties into your metaverse work, where essentially you're creating this world so you can have that sense of freedom.
Yeah.
Is what I'm hearing. You're still working through freedom now. What does freedom feel like for Deanna?
I no longer want to be at the mercy of brands. Because as an independent artist, there's ideas that I want to fund, all these things, but I always have to go back to the one that's making me money, and that's like brand collaborations, which super grateful for. But I think 6 years into this independent artist life, I'm just like, I don't want to be at the mercy of brands. And then when I said that, the universe was like, okay. And I did not get hired last year.
Wow.
I did get hired, but it wasn't like my usual. Every year I had a goal that I wanted to hit as much like what I wanted to make for the end of the year and this and that. I was not doing that last year. Matter of fact, I had to let go of everything last year because I was not getting consistent work. And in that process, that's where I found my freedom.
Wow.
Then I'm like, oh, the worst has happened.
Yeah.
I have nothing to
And I've
lose.
survived.
And I survived. And I have
Fire.
nothing to lose now. That's my freedom. And now that I went through that, I now look at the rest of my career the same way. This year, I'm being very intentional. There's things that I'm working on that I want to do. It's not at the mercy of a name or a cosign. I needed to go through what I went through last year in order to really experience liberty now. So I think I'm feeling what that feels like now.
I love it.
You mentioned that, like, in working with brands, if you didn't see yourself in whatever that presentation was, in that deck or whatever, you don't want to work with them. And aligning that with freedom, if you did have to do a little brand collaboration, what does seeing yourself on that paper look like? What are some of the things that need to be like, oh, that's Deanna approved?
Yeah. If I don't see my sense of style, every artist has its style of work. Like if you look at a Basquiat, you're going to know a Basquiat. So that's what I'm looking for in these briefs. If I don't see an essence of myself, then what are we really trying to do here? And most companies and most brands, you have to educate them a little bit to be like, okay, do you want me for me as an artist, or do you want me for what I can do? Because if we're talking about skill sets, then this is not a collaboration anymore. It's now just like a work for hire situation. So those are things that I'm looking at. And I think it's really important because if you are negating those two things, you're going to catch yourself in a project that feels very unauthentic to you. And then you're creating a piece of work that
You'll hate in 5 years.
yeah. And to be honest with you, there's a lot of work I look back on now where I'm just like, oh,
Really?
I think that's the gripe of any artist, though.
Yeah.
Like you hear Nicki Minaj talk about like how much she doesn't like Starships, but then it's like a huge record for her. Then you also hear Redman. He once was talking about Muddy Waters and how he was so high out of his mind making that album that he doesn't even remember the process of creating it. And it's so dark for him now that he doesn't perform any of the songs. I think that's the natural progression or evolution of an artist. You're finding your voice, you're feeding yourself, and as yourself changes and continues to grow, that thing that you made no longer edifies you. That's what it is.
So you don't want me here?
Oh, no, man.
That you hit it right there.
Have there been any brand collaborations that maybe had been on your bucket list and you always felt like, when I'm able to work with them, I'll know I've made it, but you didn't see yourself and you had to walk away. Have you experienced that?
Yeah, there was a client that it was a nice bag. But at the end of the day, I went back to those two things. Like, I don't see myself in this brief. And mind you, we were in midst of the project. Like, we were in the middle of the project. I pulled out.
Wow.
Yeah, because after they gave me like a round of revisions, they literally stripped back everything that I did. And I'm like, hold on. Is this not a partnership?
Yeah.
Okay, then I didn't like that. And I was a little brat back then. And I was like, I didn't like that. And decided to cancel the project.
What does that look like when you have you gotten paid? Have you gotten half of it?
No.
Okay.
And if I did, I don't know where the money went. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know.
I had to buy supplies.
Yeah, no, most of these projects, they're either like net payments. Every once in a while, you'll find a client that wants to give you 50% right up front.
Right.
But that's rare.
That is rare.
It doesn't happen often.
Sometimes you have something you're working towards, and then when you get there and you're like, oh, a lot of this was like smoke and mirrors.
Oh, yeah. Rick Rubin talks about that.
Yeah.
Like how we as humans don't know what we want because we think that once that product is finished and it's out in the world, we're going to gain all these things and it falls flat. And mind you, I did have one recent collaboration where I did something and I thought it was going to change my life. I thought my career was just going to take off. It was nothing of that. It was smoke and mirrors. And even though it was such a big accomplishment, how I felt afterwards, which is why I was like, yeah, I don't want to be at the mercy of this anymore.
Yeah.
Why am I giving so much and sharing so much when it comes out? I'm just like, ugh, it's not fruitful. It doesn't feel right.
You know what's funny about that? I was listening to, actually my homeboy Lemmy, he's a fan of your work, a senior art director that I work with, and he loves your work. And he posted this video and it was this young lady and she was speaking about how if in your creative journey, you're doing these things for the sake of validation or for the sake of outward approval, it's never going to fulfill you because the balance of that in regards to just like how sustainable that is impossible. So to some degree, it sounds like the work still needs to feed you, which is what she was touching on. Hey, the artists who go on to become these household names, they were just doing shit that fed them.
And I think that's why I'm such a stickler about what projects I pick up, because I have to make sure that the brand cares for me and it's not just a moment. Hispanic Heritage Month, right? And it's like a moment and then these brands never talk to you again. I remember 2 years ago, I was working with these two companies for Hispanic Heritage Month. And I was like, hey, thank you so much for this collaboration. But hey, can you like donate to the organization in Puerto Rico that does the roofs? I was like, can we do a donation here? Can we do a donation there? That's where my mindset is now. I no longer want to do, and I got to be careful the way the universe be listening, but I don't want those kind of relationships where it's one and done because I get left feeling very just like without. And so now these things that I work on now have to have an extended lifetime, like more than just a moment. I think donating or having conversations with brands, like this is what I do now. I'm such a stickler now. I show up more in these conversations and like advocate for what's right and also let brands know that, hey, I know that you just want this for a moment, but I think you can do more, invest in communities outside of just a social post.
Yeah, that's leveraging, like you said, the power that you have, and it's so important. It's kind of like a little Robin Hood-ish, you know, like I'll do this,
They got
but
money.
like give me the, yes, they do.
You know, people, they got money. Like, don't play me.
How do you navigate those conversations? Because it can be intimidating. You could be afraid of messing up that bag. How do you navigate those conversations, or how has your voice changed and had a little more confidence?
Yeah. My cheat sheet is now I say, hey, my base rate for a project like this is X, Y, and Z. Can we meet here though? Because then I want the client to feel like she's trying to meet us in the middle. So that's how my conversations now about like getting paid is like, versus to before I had somebody else do that, but now I'm having to do that. And so it's, bro, if I don't ask about budget, if I don't ask about my meeting me at my rate, I'm going to put myself in a negative.
Yeah.
And I can't do that. And so I think having the audacity to be like, this is my base rate, but I'm down to meet you here if you can meet me here. And that has worked so far. brands are like, oh, wow, a deal.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. But it is one of those things, especially in the creative community, where people are afraid to ask for what they want or even what they're worth.
Yeah.
And I think we've moved maybe away from the paying and exposure. I don't think we moved away from that.
I would hope so.
Yeah, I don't think I see too many people.
I want you to think on this. If there was a brand that came and said, hey, look, I don't have a direct fee for you, but we're willing to do this and exposure, what brand would that be? Think about it while we take this quick
Okay.
break.
So you had some time to think about the question that KJ posed.
It's going to have to be a person.
It's going to be a person?
Oh,
Yeah, it's be a
Ooh,
person.
I like that. That's spicy too, though. That's good. That's good.
Yeah, I think a musical artist, even though I said I will never do that again. Yo, they're interesting. But
They're sensitive about their shit. That's just what it is.
it's part that and just part like they're the only one that's suffering. You know?
Yeah.
You know, it's like everyone around you suffering, chill. But it would have to be a person, a brand. There's just so much strings attached to that. I think Benito will be fun.
Yeah.
Ooh, yo, just do your pitch to Benito right there.
Mira, Benito, te tengo que hablar. Okay? We need to collaborate.
Hey.
But I just think what he's doing on the land, on the island right now is, I think with that new video, the Mudanza, and like how that goes back to the pride of the Puerto Rican flag and things of that and his story. I love where he's at right now. And I think having an artist like myself who's also intentional and wanting to advocate and bring light to these matters, I think there's fun in that.
Hey, yo, Bad Bunny, I heard your tour is in like 4 months or something, and I think you could still have time to like do a stage design or something
my God,
where
can you
Deanna,
imagine?
you know what I mean, could come in and lend her creative eye and artistic vision to you. So,
Oh, I got a better idea.
ooh, give it to us.
For those of us who cannot witness the concert firsthand because we didn't get the code and your work with Metaverse, what if you created the Bad Bunny universe and we could watch it in the universe?
That.
Right?
There it goes. I like
If
it.
it happens, I'll give you a cut.
I like it.
Everyone gets everyone here gets a cut for the brainstorm session.
Yes.
That's it. That's it.
That would be so cool though. But talking about like that metaverse, that thing is super cool.
Insane.
It's scary, I'm sure, because as an artist, I'm sure that conversation that creatives have with like technology stealing our art and with the growth of AI. But here you are an artist that's collaborating with Meta. How does that feel like for you? How did you kind of see it as like a good thing?
Yeah, I mean, it was a challenge. I've never worked in that space. And I think I'm allowed to do that. I think like as artists, as creatives in general, like we should be allowed to kind of like push the envelopes a little, even if it's bringing a lot of like discourse, right? And like with the topic of like AI and things of that nature, that discourse is welcomed and it's very necessary. And I think artists like myself have the opportunity to kind of shine light on the other end of the spectrum. Because oftentimes as artists, we lean to the other side of disparity, of being without, or it's going to take my job. But it's like, what if we had the nerve to see how we can manipulate technology to work with us? And so being able to like tell a story of like my childhood, being raised in Puerto Rico, like that whole world is a nod to the street that I lived on in PR. And giving the accessibility to people to be able to experience that.
Yeah.
I think that's the bigger picture. It's like, yes, there is discourse, but how can we use it to our benefit?
Right.
And we can use it as a storyteller and being able to like highlight these stories. So I think it was fun. It was a challenge. Like I said, I've never worked in that space, but me being who I am, like I love a challenge. And I wanted to see if I had the context and if I had the skill set and what I know about art to bring it to a medium like that.
Speaking of challenges and just rising to the occasion, I think nothing is coincidental, right? I think everything happens for a reason. Do you think that you would have still encountered this journey of healing and belonging and identity had you continued pursuing a career in fashion?
No. Because the fashion world is very elusive in many ways. And building relationships, I found it to be really hard in the fashion industry. I think any industry as a whole can be competitive, but then that gets to be like classist and like elitist and what are you wearing? And at the time when I was in fashion, half of my head was shaved and I was wearing boots from All Saints. Like I was just like this grungy looking girl, but I was working for some of the elites. But I experienced a lot of classism and a lot of elitism in there in that industry that knowing me, had I stayed there longer, I think I just would have become very bitter. And I don't see that for myself. I'm where I'm at today because who I surround myself with. And the people in my corner are educating me. And we're having hard conversations and we're trying to see how we can advocate for our communities. And so it's a mix of getting out of that industry and then acquainting myself with people that want to see a better future. So to your question, no, I don't think I would
Ever have gotten to this point?
I think I just would have been a bitter old woman.
I love that she touched on the people she surrounds herself with
Right.
and how that industry it has the reflection to some degree. Like it can have a reflection on you in the longer term. I want you to touch on, because in an interview you talked about your chosen family. And I love that term because transparently I'm part of a men's book club. We had this discussion around like our fathers and the choice of all the things there and like whether or not my son at some point gets to meet his granddad, even if his granddad wasn't in my life. And I've made it very clear that to me, I believe in chosen family, right? The people that family isn't defined for me by blood in the closest. It's truly just based on like who has shown up and truly supports and shows love. Roxy's family to me, that's like my dog. Like we've been down for so long that it's just like, nah, I fuck with her the long way. What does chosen family look like and mean for you?
It's my sisterhood. I grew up wanting sisterhood so bad. And I've always found myself in groups of friends that we just never aligned. And I found myself feeling a lot of isolation a lot and being left out and things like that. And so I had to get over that, like the issue that I have with women. I had to get over that. And it wasn't until that I met like Kat or that I met Natalie, like those two women like showed me that there are spaces where we can be safe together, that we can build community together, that we can be sisters, you know? And so I think it was just the exposure of that. And then once I got a taste of it, I started to look for that quality in people. Like, what is it about you that makes me feel safe? And what can I do for you to make you feel safe? What conversations are we having? Because I am not a surface level girl. I want to sit down and yap about like
Aliens?
everything.
Hey, I'm with it.
Listen, aliens.
Yo, I'm with it. Hold on.
Like I will do you one better. Like do you think dinosaurs are real? I'm telling you, like
unless they making the bones in a factory somewhere, I gotta just go off of what I know. So like, yeah,
but you know what I mean? Like
Totally.
But have you seen the bones?
you know what? I only seen them in a museum, so you know what?
And
you might
we
be
don't
right.
know if they were manufactured.
See, I'm telling you,
you got
like
it.
I love to have conversations that like make you like, oh,
Yeah.
think. I don't mind like the surface level. I can do that all day, but those are the things that exhaust me the most. And so I'm looking for quality in people when I meet them and be like, oh, like, do I trust you? Can you trust me? What kind of person are you? Morally, where do you stand? Because that's also a big deal. Like I can't be friends with people out here that are
Not taking care of their kids. Y'all boys take care of y'all kids. Go ahead. Do the right thing. Step up. Be dads. All right? It ain't easy, but do it.
Yeah, I can relate to that so much. I have a group chat with KJ and Chris, who you know as well. And when I tell you that we talk every single day, and we do not have a shortage of conversation topics that we can, like, we talk about anything and everything. But we can do that because we don't ever judge each other in
Oh,
that
man.
group chat.
which is important.
Yeah.
We be coming in
We
here like,
listen
all
and we
right,
don't
chat.
judge.
So
I need
this
that.
is problematic, but I know I could tell y'all. So and then we
that.
just And the other thing too that's refreshing is that we can talk about everything, and it's not always. This might sound a little bit like mean or whatever, but do you ever just get exhausted about like talking about men all the time.
Oh my God.
And talking about relationships all the time.
Right now, what we're having a conversation about is decentering our fathers. Like that's
Ooh.
what we're at.
I
Hold
might
on.
need to join that book club. Goddamn. Because we were just talking about, listen.
Don't get me going down these rabbit holes,
Listen,
man.
yeah.
We
But
could go on
it's
forever.
so important to, like you said, like not have those surface level conversations. Also, one thing that I've been realizing lately with what you were saying about morals, the things that align and why you reach out to certain friends or develop certain friendships further than others. But like one thing that's become really important to me and that I've been like really pinpointing is looking at friends in my circle and around me that are not really interested in giving back to any particular community. And I think this kind of just stems from like one, what we do here with the podcast is, you know, creating a platform for our Hispanic community to share their stories and creating that archive. So that's very important to just who I am as a person and my purpose. I also volunteer as a mentor to kids in juvie every week, and I'm part of that nonprofit organization with my good friend Shelby, Project 222, if you haven't heard. And it's so great that the group of mentors, it's just so nice that you care because we're taking time out of our day. Like we all have jobs. Some people have families and kids and this and but every Monday we're showing up at the juvie at 5 o'clock to go hang out with these kids for 2 hours. And I look around and I'm just like, oh my God, like I'm so happy you care, you know, about this. But then taking that and being like, you know, these people, I've never seen this person ever. And there's nothing wrong with it. Listen, if you don't have time and you don't have the capacity or whatever, that's fine. But where I'm at in my life right now is I want to be around people who have a purpose bigger than themselves. And that is so important.
Yeah.
And even in your body of work, you're always representing a community. Yes, this is work for you, your healing, your journey, all of those things. But you're also always cognizant of representing a community. And that is so important. You know, like just that's the whole entire premise.
I think this is the perfect spot for that
Our question?
That question. That you know which question I'm
Yes.
talking about. That question.
Yes.
Go for it.
So one kind of reoccurring theme of the podcast, and even just something that has come up in all conversations, especially with the climate that we're in, you know, politically, we're already being ganged up against, right? We don't need to duke it out with each other.
Right.
And so the question that we want to pose is who can determine or what determines if you are Hispanic enough, if you are Latina enough, if you are Puerto Rican enough? Like, who is the authority on that?
I mean, I don't see anybody as king and queen when it comes to that.
Right.
I think I've heavily relied or leaned on my family for that because that's my family. And that's the opinion that I care about most. Because if my family does not accept me, then it becomes like a ripple effect, right? My family doesn't accept me, then I don't accept me, and then I project that onto my community or my peers, and then they don't accept me. So like I feel like for me, it has to start at the root. And I think that's not that they determine it, but they reinstill that in me and they remind me. I think that's what matters to me. If I get into the complexity of it all, then I'm going to always be without. And then maybe I don't pursue art. Maybe I stop storytelling. Maybe I shut up. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like I can't allow some figure who does not know me and what I'm about determine whether I'm enough of something. And I think that's the complexity about walking in the middle and not having or not being too much of something. But like I said earlier, I just feel like I still matter. And the blood is in my body and my ancestry fought for this moment. And so I think that doesn't matter to me. As long as I'm seen through my family and friends and my chosen family, I think that's where I lay the importance. Outside of that, I think it becomes noise.
Yeah, it really is. There's just such a, whether they see it, recognize it or not, it's just like this divisiveness that's like, we're already right now in this environment that has everyone questioning where they stand politically and things like that, and having to be very vigilant of everything that's happening in the news and how does this affect me and what's going to happen to me, my family, my loved ones, and things like that, to then be arguing about frivolous things, whether I'm Latina because I don't speak Spanish. That doesn't take away that I'm Latina. Like, or if I never went back to wherever my parents or my family is from, I'm no longer Latina. Like these certain things are just, to what end?
Yeah, I think it's partly imposed by our own people, but I think it was systemically enriched here.
Right.
I think a lot of people become so Americanized and they start to drink the water and they start to believe that. And I think that's because the systems that are here in place are so divisive, to your point, that like they want that.
Yeah.
The United States right now, the government right now wants us to hate each other.
Right.
But I think as a community, as people, I think we need to do better than that.
Absolutely.
And so I think that's why it's up to us to determine if outside noises or people are going to or dictate what we are or what we aren't.
Right.
While the government is doing a great job at that right now.
Right. And it's very important for people to recognize that, because right now what I'm seeing is a lot of, well, at least it's not me. And it's just like, wait a minute.
Hold on.
That's not okay.
That's not the way we should be thinking.
Because it could be.
Right.
And once we're done with this group of people, we're coming for you next. So it's just kind of like, you can't sit here and play that game of like, well, as long as it's not me right now, it's a very dangerous game.
Yeah.
I think that means all of our duties is to be a bridge. Simple, right? Like, you're living in, like I call it, the three worlds, right? I'd love to see you continue to bridge those three worlds and at some point speak to all three of them in whatever form and fashion you find fit, right? You being an illustration, but also still work and digital work and metaverse. Hopefully Bad Bunny hears your pitch.
Yeah, that's happening.
And that way you could even like, you might be able to throw like the Verrazano Bridge in the background somewhere to like shout out the Puerto Ricans in New York that might have made it down to Puerto Rico. You know what I mean? I just think that like, I love what you're doing and I think it's worth commending
Thank you.
on the podcast and just say, hey, keep it up.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that. I was actually reading your text message from 2022.
Oh my God. What did I say?
And it was when I came out with the basketball court in the Bronx. And you were like, PR's next. And I'm just like, yeah, in due time, I feel like as I'm growing and evolving and understanding more, and time will lead me there. I see myself painting something there. I just don't think it's right now, just because there's still more work to do. But everyone's speaking it and mentioning it, and I'm like, oh, it's just a matter of time now.
Well, you did say the universe has its funny ways, so
she is hilarious. she got jokes.
oh, I know. Trust me. I told God in the universe, hey, I want to go on tour.
Yes.
Right? When I was like taking pictures as a photographer, and I was like, I really want to go on tour. And I didn't specify what kind of tour. I still went on tour. Like I was launching physical retail stores throughout the country and saw a lot of different places. So it worked out. It just wasn't the tour that I had in mind. So it was like, oh God, here go your sense of humor again.
Yeah.
Thanks, dog.
And I think it's because of how we pose it, right? Like I learned that I was manifesting wrong the entire time. I'm already there. I'm actually already there painting. That's how you see it versus to like one day, or I would like to, it's like, oh no, I'm already on tour. I'm actually photographing so-and-so actually right now. Wow. So that's how we can change our verbiage.
So did you just tell us you're painting for Bad Bunny?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
Oh my
I love it. I love it. Tid?
Yeah. Before I go into the 10, I just
Aight.
have one last question.
Let's do it.
Because we've talked about healing and the inner child and all of those things. And so I was just kind of curious, aside from the art and aside from using that as an outlet, what's one thing that you've done to appease that little Liana in there?
Like project wise or just like in general?
Just not even work related. Just something that you do for yourself that's like, this makes little Diana really happy.
Okay, I have like sensory I don't know, a situation, and I have a Wookiee that I sleep with.
Oh.
And it's a soft little Wookiee, little Chewbacca. And I sleep with that every night.
Yeah.
And that just warms her little heart.
Oh.
And she also likes to dance. I thought I was going to be a choreographer. Did you ever see the meme where it's like, oh, if you were doing 8 counts in front of your family, you're mentally ill now? That's me. My mom's right here.
Oh my
She
God.
can testify that I would be like, Mom, I came up with this new dance. Can you please like watch me?
Yeah.
And she would sit in the living room and I would dance my 8 counts.
Yeah.
I had like full choreography. Like I was doing talent shows. Like I was doing videos. I was dancing at the local theater. Like I thought that I was going to be a dancer.
Okay.
And to this day, I move my body to honor that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was supposed to be a choreographer, not an artist.
Hey.
Here we are.
The universe had other plans
Yeah, she
for
did.
you.
Yeah.
She's like, no 8 counts.
Yeah. So at the end of every show, we always wrap up with bringing out the infamous cookie tin.
Cute.
And always just like to see if this resonates with the guests,
Yeah.
if they know what this is.
What was it in your home? Is I guess the question.
What
we
was
should-
inside of this in your home?
Everything but cookies. It was buttons. It was like the little threads.
Yep.
It was
Needles.
it
Needles,
was everything
yep.
but cookies.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So we like to bring this out just to kind of do a little trip down memory lane. And then we want you to open it and just see if there are cookies in there or if there's something else in there.
Oh. Can I shake it?
Sure.
There ain't no cookies. Wait. Maybe.
It might
Hold on.
be.
The weight though. I don't know. Should I
Uh-oh.
guess?
You can give us one guess.
There's no cookies in here.
Well, let's see. Open her up.
There's cookies.
Hey.
There's cookies, but these are bimbo cookies.
I have not. Oh my God, bro. This is like taking me back. I know exactly where I'm at right now in PR eating these.
Yes.
I'm in Escuela
Take
right
us
now.
there. Yes.
Oh my God, I'm wearing my little pink jumper. It's like the pink shirt, and then I had like the plaid overalls. I'm wearing the high socks with. Can I eat this? I'm
Yes.
like, about
Yeah,
to
no,
throw
go
this up.
for it. Yeah.
I'm definitely like on the side of the school, like listening to Shakira.
Oh.
Yes. I love it. For people who don't know, like Bimbo is a brand. It's not exclusive to Puerto Rico, but it's just like a bakery brand. They make a lot of cookies and like breads too. And yeah, everyone, you eat Bimbo cookies when you go to like in school, like it's a
like
snack.
in your cafeteria. Like
Yeah.
this was like highlight.
Yeah.
Like this was the best.
Or like after school, you go to the little corner store, you get Bimbo cookies.
a little quarter.
Yes.
Does it still hit the same though? Is the question that people have.
No, I went there.
Okay.
No, you didn't just see the trip.
No, I saw, but I because you she did.
Like,
you know,
I had
all
to
that.
savor that.
Okay,
Like
good,
that
good.
definitely took me there. And I'm now going to take all of them.
Oh, no,
Hey,
those
no,
are
that-
for
that's
you.
That's for you.
Really?
Yeah, you take them. You might have to share one or two with your mama.
I don't know if she act right.
One of the things you mentioned when you walked in was just how this is such a full circle moment because we have known each other for a very long time. And I've actually had you on different variations of my media journey and media career. When I had the Oh Roxy show,
Yep.
when we were doing it like live stream, I remember you were living in Atlanta and you called in. And then when I had the actual in studio show, you were one of the guests. So I love that you've now made your way to this variation. And I really appreciate you coming and sharing your story and being so candid just about your journey as a whole.
Yeah, I think it's evident that we don't have many platforms elevating our stories. And what you're doing is necessary work. And I've seen every version of you as you've seen every version of me. And I just want to thank you for even keeping me in mind.
Yeah, so thank you all for tuning in. We want to thank you all for joining us back on this journey as we navigate season 3. With everything kind of just going on politically in this country, it's really important now more than ever to have platforms like this where we're sharing our stories, our journeys, and really at the core of it all is to unite us. I want us all to have better understanding of the different journeys that brought our families and us here, and have a better understanding of one another. And hopefully that leads towards patience and empathy and lots of love. So with that being said, tune in next time. To all of our listeners who have been following our journey, welcome back. To everyone who's new, stick with us. And que Dios te continúe bendiciendo.
Yo soy Boricua.